If I can get excuses out of people, I can take the things away from them that paralyze them, that cause them to hesitate and pause. So then I said, what are the biggest excuses that we deal with? Well, fear is a big one. I'm scared to do it. I'm scared to do it. But what we're scared of, millions of people have already done. I'm not talking about standing on the edge of a cliff, obviously, Dave. Yeah. But, in business and risk, these aren't new things, fear. Other people have already done this. Fear is BS in my view. And then I look at scarcity. Well, I don't have the money. Well, tell that to Stephen Jobs in his garage. Scarcity. And then I love the excuse circumstance. Well, it's a recession. I can't make money was the big one years ago. People got rich during the recession. A lot of people did. So during our pandemic, look at how hand sanitizer companies and mask companies, and look at how these industries, somebody's making money during all of these things.
One of the things I've heard you say is that fixing bars is easy, fixing people is hard. Did you realize going into it how much of it was just going to be dealing with like the psychology of people? Because usually that seems to be what you're fixing. You go in and fix the bar after, but you're really fixing the people first.
And that was sort of an evolution, honestly, because when I started this, I was a consultant, and I was a very well-known consultant. So I had very well-known clients. Right? So my clients are people like Marriott Corporation and Holiday Inn Inc. and Fridays and companies like that. So I never knew this level of failure even existed, Dave. I never saw anything like this before in my life. So when I said to the network, I want you guys find me real failures. I don't want this easy. Let's make this real. I never comprehended this. To think that somebody's 50 years old, $500,000 in debt, living in their parents' basement with their child, losing $30,000 a month, out of money, no credit, and they're still going. It's remarkable. And, most of these people have 2 to 3 weeks left, and then they're done anyway. So it really is a last chance for them.
So I know I could do the whole hour on bar rescue with you, but how much of the interactions, like I get you're being real and you just learn from them. Do you sense, it's always this thing where you see people suddenly doing these crazy things. Right before we started, I said I was watching one yesterday doing cardio where there's this woman who's an owner of a bar. She's probably in her mid 50s. She's got big boobs. She has people doing shots, off her rack. Like some of it seems like it's like too crazy to be real. And yet I suspect it probably isn't.
Well, no, it's completely real. Everything is completely real. There are no actors, there's no scripts, there's no reshoots. It is completely real. And when I looked at her, and I hope I can say this on this podcast, when I looked at her and said, I can help your sagging business, I don't know if I can help your sagging boobs. I said that to her for a reason. I wanted to embarrass her. And when I started Bar Rescue, Dave, it was all about dirty bars and remodels. And several episodes into it, I realized how flawed these owners were to be in those situations. And if I didn't change them, I couldn't change anything. And it was about 120 episodes in, believe it or not. I was in Detroit, Michigan, with a female owner of a bar I think I named the Proving Grounds. And I looked at her and I said, why are you failing? And Dave, she looked at me in the eyes and said to me, I am failing because of the euro in Greece. Now, this was in suburban Detroit, Michigan. And at that moment, I realized that 120 times earlier, I had asked these business owners, why are they failing? And never once, Dave, did anyone ever look at me and said, I'm failing because of me, John. Not once. So I realized, wait a minute. If she goes home and blames the euro on her failure, she has no reason to change. Yeah. She'll look in the mirror in the morning and she'll say, that damn euro taking me down. But if she looked in the mirror and said, I'm failing because of me, she wouldn't like that. She would change. That hit me a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. And I realized that excuses are the common denominator of failure. And then I thought to myself a little farther, what is an excuse? An excuse is the reconciliation of a mistake. Either you did something you shouldn't have, you didn't do something you should have, or you screwed up, or you wouldn't need the excuse. So an excuse is your way of making yourself feel good about your own failure. It's the most paralyzing thing in business is an excuse. So when I realized that, I said to myself, wow, I think I found a common denominator of failure. If I can get excuses out of people, I can take the things away from them that paralyze them, that cause them to hesitate and pause. So Then I said, what are the biggest excuses that we deal with? Well, fear is a big one. I'm scared to do it. I'm scared to do it. But what we're scared of, millions of people have already done. I'm not talking about standing on the edge of a cliff, obviously, Dave.
Yeah.
But, in business and risk, I mean, these aren't new things, fear. Other people have already
Yeah.
done this. Fear is BS in my view. And then I look at scarcity. Well, I don't have the money. Well, tell that to Stephen Jobs in his garage. Scarcity. And then I love the excuse circumstance. Well, it's a recession. I can't make money was the big one years ago. People got rich during the recession. A lot of people did. So during our pandemic, look at how hand sanitizer companies and mask companies, and look at how these industries, somebody's making money during all of these things. And then I looked at, the other excuses, and I came up and I realized that if I can take these excuses out of people's lives, I can stop what paralyzes them. So that all happened in that Detroit episode. And from that, I wrote the book, Don't BS Yourself, Cut the Excuses That Are Holding You Back, which made it to the New York Times bestseller list. And I'm very, very proud of that book because when you finish it, excuses won't work for you anymore. Now you're self-accountable. Now when you look in the mirror in the morning, you will blame yourself, and you should.
Yeah, well, and that's what seems to be the consistent message throughout the shows, that the owner usually is making all sorts of excuses for all sorts of things, and if you can fix that guy or that girl, then the rest of the pieces do fall into place. Do you guys ever do look backs where you're trying to figure out, well, who actually succeeded after this, or who the next day after they got their brand new beautiful bar just screwed up the whole thing? Because I'm sure that happens too.
Yeah, there's a website called Bar Rescue Updates. It's an independent website. We have nothing to do with it. It tracks the success of Bar Rescue. And of course, now everybody's closed, but pre-pandemic, we were tracking at about 68 to 70% success factor. Now, I don't know what their definition of success was, Dave, if it's open 3 years later or 2 years, I don't know. But I know that they had us tracking at about 68%. There was also a newspaper article that rated the 2 other restaurant conversion shows, and I won't mention the shows or the hosts, but there's 3 of us that tend to claim this space. My show ran about a 68% success factor. The other 2 were in the 20s. So I'm very pleased with what we do. I go at it as a consultant, and the cameras are along for the trip. I don't go at it as a TV host and a consulting is along for the trip. And I think that's why we're successful.
All right, cool. So as I said, I love the show, so I could talk about it for an hour, but I do want to talk about
to answer your question.
Stuff.
I didn't answer your question. Yes, we did 20 Back to the Bar episodes also. We went back and looked at them, and I think those are on the Paramount website, and those were sort of fun too.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to check those out. So you mentioned a little bit about your career before all this and consulting and all that. When I was doing a little research this morning, I saw that you used to work at the Troubadour in West Hollywood. I used to live about a block from there. I've been to a bunch of different events over there. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into food service, the early beginnings of your career, where your sort of ethos around personal responsibility and the rest of it came from?
Well, when I was young, I was a very serious musician. I took drum lessons for 9 years and was very good. I still have a drum set upstairs in my office. I was very good. And so I wanted to be a musician. But my family, and there's another side of me that wanted to go into business. So to make a long story short, I went to University of Denver and majored in political science and minored in cultural anthropology, which I love, the study of primates and what makes us think and understanding our primal behaviors and such. And I started tending bar in college. And one thing led to another. And to chase my music career, and now that I had a bartending skill, I went to Los Angeles, got an apartment in the Oakwood Apartments in Studio City back then, which had quite a social hot tub scene back in those days, and got a job in the Troubadour because it connected bartending and music for me. And then evolved to be manager of the Troubadour, and also worked in Barney's Beanery down the street and managed Barney's Beanery.
Yeah, it's still there.
Sure. So that was my real beginnings. When I took over the Troubadour, we had about 8 inches of water on the floor in the kitchen. It was flooded, and we had no money. And Doug Weston, the owner, may he rest in peace, back then had recreational drug habits. And I would close the Troubadour, and I'd put $800 or whatever in a floor safe, and I'd have to come back at 8:30 in the morning to get that $800 out to pay for the liquor because everything was COD because we had no credit. And I'd come in the morning, and the money would be gone because Doug took it for drugs the night before. So I had to run this business in the most unfavorable of ways. I had no money. He kept taking the money. I started taking it home at night so he couldn't get it in the morning. I had a flood in the kitchen that we didn't have the money to fix. I got pallets, wooden pallets. We threw them on the kitchen floor so we could walk over the water rather than and that's how we opened the Troubadour. And I coordinated something called the 25th anniversary of the Troubadour, and we got everybody from George Carlin to Linda Ronstadt, all of them to come back during that month, and we made the money and stabilized operations.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about lifestyles instead of nonstop yelling, check out our lifestyle playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.